Hello Cloud Pedagogians, welcome to this lab in the Identity and Access Management. In this lab, we are going to create an admin group and an admin user, but we are going to do it from the command line interface. So we have a familiarity with what we need to do, and this will get our feet wet using the CLI. If you have worked on other IAM labs in my channel, remember this lab is just parallel to the other console labs where we configure an administrator and a group using the management console. This time we are going to do the same thing from the command line interface. In the task 1, we will create root user access and security keys. In task 2, we will install and configure AWS CLI. In task 3, we will configure accounts, groups and policies in the command line interface. Finally, in the task 4, we will verify the same in the AWS console management page. Start with the task 1. Create root user access and secret keys. So the premises imagine that we don't have any administrator account. So we are going to use the root account for this task. So let's log into as a root. Alright, now before we go to the command line interface, which I'm going to call the CLI moving forward, let's go into IAM and let's click on delete root access keys. So click on manage security credentials on top right corner. Remember, working from the command line interface, we need access key and secret access key to authenticate. So we have one active set of access keys. Let's go ahead and delete that and start fresh. And let's click create new access key. Good work, you have successfully created root user access and security keys. In task 2, we will install and configure AWS CLI. Okay, now we can head over and install and configure the CLI. Now before we get started, let's talk a little bit about steps to install and configure the CLI. The AWS CLI is a unified tool to manage your AWS services. With just one tool to download and configure, you can control multiple AWS services from the command line. And this is the key to automate them through scripts, and that's really the strength of the CLI. You can use the CLI to create scripts to manage your services. So the AWS CLI is an open source tool to build up on top of the AWS SDK for Python that provides commands for interacting with AWS services. You can install the CLI on Windows machines, Mac and Linux. Developer terminal programs or Linux shells, Windows command line, and you can remotely access EC2 instances using PuTTY or SSH. Now as you can see, there are a variety of ways to work with the AWS CLI. And here I'm going to demonstrate one which I know everyone will be able to do. So I'm going to use AWS Cloud Shell Service for this. The good thing about this is you don't need to worry about much installation process of AWS CLI. So let's try to install the AWS CLI. So first open AWS Cloud Shell in the AWS console page. In the terminal, let's enter pip3 install AWS CLI. Now what you'll find is that it's probably there already, but let's run it anyway. As you can see, you will see a bunch of requirements already satisfied. So the AWS CLI is already on this Cloud Shell. Now it's there already, but is it up to date? Well, let's find out and let's make sure that it is. So we will do pip install AWS CLI upgrade user. and then we are going to add the upgrade switch as well as user. So upgrade will upgrade anything that has already been installed. So we know it's there already. We just want to make sure it's up to date. And user tells pip to install the program to a subdirectory of your user directory to avoid modifying libraries used by your operating system. So this looks good. Let's go ahead and hit return. Okay, it looks like it was already up to date. If it was not, this would just take a minute or two. It doesn't take long at all. And one last verification, let's do AWS version. Alright, AWS CLI has some latest version. So we have it installed and it is up to date. Next we will do with the AWS configure command. When you do AWS configure, you will be prompted for 4 pieces of information. The access key ID, the secret access key, the default region name and the default output. So you can receive output in JSON, text or table format, and the default one is JSON. So let's go ahead and hit return, and right away it's asking for our access key. Now remember, at the beginning of this lab, we have created a new access key for the root user and downloaded it. So we would retrieve this from our download directory. It's going to be .csv file, and we can just open that CSV file up, copy the access key and paste it in it here. And then hit return. So it's asking for the secret key again. Same thing from the CSV file. We can do a quick copy and paste. My default region is US East 1. I could change that to anything. I could change that to US East 2, but it's fine. I'm just going to keep that. I'll hit return. It wants to know the default output format. Now remember, the default is JSON. You can either hit enter or enter your input format type. Now one thing I want to make very clear is that, remember when we set up users, we had to select the access types. There was a management console and programmatic access. Programmatic access involves the CLI, and if we select that, the user received an access key and secret key. At the CLI, there is no login. The user is not going to log in with their username and password. The authentication is via the access key and the secret key. And we have done that successfully. If we had invalid access key, we would have gotten a message to that effect. So we have successfully installed and configured the AWS CLI, which finishes the task 2 as well. In the task 3, we will configure accounts, groups and policies. We use the root account to create an admin account so that we could block away the root account. But we are performing the same task here just from the CLI. So just for this one time, we are going to use the root account again. Basically, we are taking a step back as if we had not already created an admin account. We are going to use the root account to create an admin account. So step 1, we want to create our group, and we use the create group command. And we just need to specify the name of our new group. Enter a group name, CPCLI admin group. Okay, it's returning specs and our new group name, group ID ARN and the created date. So we know we are good, but let's verify anyway. Let's list groups. AWS IAM list groups. Okay, and our new group CPCLI admin group is listed. Now we can attach the policy to our new group. Okay, so we use the attach group policy command. We specify our new group and the policy ARN for the administration access policy. Let's bounce out to the management console and get our policy ARN. Alright, we are signed into the management console as the root user. Remember, this is parallel to what we did in other IAM lab sessions. We are assuming we don't have yet an admin user. So we will go into IAM and let's click on policies. And at the top is our administration access policy, or you can search for it. And right at the top is the policy ARN. Let's copy that to our clipboard. And now let's go back to the CLI and execute our commands. That looks good. Let's execute. Okay, that came back with no errors. But again, let's verify, let's list the policies attached to our group. And we do that with command list attached group policies and with the group name. We are specifying our new group. This looks good. Okay. As expected, the policy administrator access is attached to our group CPCLI admin group. Now we can proceed to creating our user. We do that with the create user command. We specify the attribute, username and the username we want to create. Let's execute. After success, you can see the specs for the new user, username, user ID, ARN and the created date. Now remember again, when creating a user, you have to specify what type of access you want for this user. There is a programmatic access and management console access. Being that this is an administrator, we want both. So let's first create a password for this user. So we are using the command create login profile specifying the attribute of username, and we are giving this user a password, some password admin @123. Let's execute. Okay, and it came back. Good. User CPCLI user admin and of note password reset required is false. So the user will not have to change that password upon the first login. Now we want the user again to have programmatic access. So let's do that. With the create access key command or the attribute username, and for our user CPCLI user admin, we want to create access keys. And you will see it returns the access key as well as the secret access key, and we can record and provide to our new user. Okay, finally we want to add our user to our admin group, thereby giving the user the administrator access permissions. We use the command add user to group, specify the group name attribute, and our group name is CPCLI admin group. Username attribute and our username is CPCLI user admin, and execute the command. Alright, that comes back with no errors. And we are going to trust but verify that. That is what we are going to do in the next task. We will check on all of our work in the AWS Management Console. Remember, one last time we are going to log in as root, and we have created an admin user and an admin group. Good job, you have successfully completed the task 3. In task 4, we will verify all our work in AWS console page. Let's check everything out. Check out groups. And as expected, there is our CPCLI admin group. Let's check our users. CPCLI user admin, which is in the CPCLI admin group. This user is cached to the administrator access policy from our group. There is our access key, and one final check. Let's grab our console login link and log in as this user. And remember, the URL for the console login specifies our account ID. Okay, we should be able to log in as the new user, CPCLI user admin, and there we go. We are logged in as CPCLI user admin and we have successfully created our admin group. Attached to an admin policy, created a user, placed that user in our admin group. We did this all from the command line. Congratulations, we have successfully completed this lab. Thank you for joining me and hope to see you again in my next lab. Until then, take care.